بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So inshallah what we're going to cover today is Surah Yusuf. So we have Surah Yunus, Surah Hud and Surah Yusuf. This is the order, and even in the order of how the ayahs were revealed was first Surah Yunus, then Surah Hud, then Surah Yusuf after that. This was revealed in late Meccan phase, so end of Makkah, that area. And this is a unique surah because it's a whole story in one surah. It's a whole story of Surah Yusuf is in one surah. Sometimes in Musa alayhi salam's his story is all spread out throughout the whole Quran. Isa alayhi salam all spread out throughout the Quran. Other ones are all spread out throughout the whole Quran. But when it comes to Surah Yusuf, it's only specifically in this surah. And the background behind this information of why or what is the things that happened around this time when it was revealed is that three tragedies happened before this surah. The three tragedies that happened to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam before this surah was revealed, and it was called the Aam al-Huzn. It was a year of worry and concern and grief, a year of sorrow. And he even mentioned that he didn't even smile much that year. That was how worried he was. So what had happened? What was the three tragedies? Number one is the death of his wife Khadija radiallahu anha. Shortly after was the death of Abu Talib, and Abu Talib was his outward kind of protection and outward kind of support in the community. Khadija radiallahu was his inner support inside of the house. So those were the two. So he lost two family members quite close to him. And the third one in the year, in Aam al-Huzn, was the story of Ta'if, when he went out to Ta'if and then he got pelted and stoned and so forth. So this was the three big incidents that happened in that year, and then Surah Yusuf is revealed. Surah Yusuf is then revealed. So we know, and I'll just mention as much points as possible. I'm not going to mention the whole story. I think everyone knows the story of what happened. So I'm just going to mention as much lessons and morals that we can learn from Surah Yusuf, and I think I've covered this already extensively in the other year as well. Number one is the best of نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص. It is the best of all stories. And he also teaches us that we should be concerned about our children as well. Just like Yaqub alayhi salam, who was the father, and Yusuf alayhi salam, which is the son. So when the son comes up to the father asking, look, I saw a dream, I saw 11 stars, so the sun and the moon, and he said, alright, Yaqub alayhi salam said, protect yourself, don't tell anyone. So the first thing is, he was concerned about his son. He said, don't tell anyone, just in case that this knowledge goes out and people start to feel jealous or someone wants to harm you or something. So he's concerned about his child. He says, I'm going to give you advice. Not only that, we find that the dreams are also mentioned in this surah, interpretation of dreams. So there's three main dreams that were mentioned in this surah. Well, obviously the dream of Yusuf alayhi salam at the beginning that we know of, that he saw his 11 stars in the sun and the moon. And we saw also inni ara a'silu khamra. We also saw the prisoners inside of the prison. They also saw a dream, and they went to Yusuf alayhi salam to get interpreted. That's the second dream. And the last dream is the king, Aziz, the king. He also had a dream, and then he eventually went to Yusuf, and then he called for Yusuf to try and interpret the dream. So there's three main dreams which has been mentioned here. And sometimes you find dreams, our dreams, example, are sometimes really vivid, and really we understand everything, or not understand, but we see everything. And then sometimes it's like symbolic things that you can see, and then you can get it interpreted because this is what the Quran has allowed. And then sometimes you find it's like murky, you don't really understand it. Sometimes it's grey, it's fuzzy, you don't really know what's going on. And then there's adghathu ahlam, which is now to do with, sometimes you wake up with a wet dream, sometimes you are having desires in the night. So all of this stuff, these are different types, and sometimes you don't even remember them at all. Like, I don't know what I was dreaming of. So there's different types of dreams. And then the dream interpreter, the one that can interpret dreams, that generally that knowledge comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Generally that knowledge comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that one really, who understands the Quran and so forth, he can really give that interpretation regarding the dream that a person has. Another kind of lesson that you can learn from here is that we don't flaunt our blessings. So sometimes we have a blessing, Allah has given us a blessing, we don't flaunt it and show it off. and say, look what I've got. Rather, if something has happened to you, something blessed has happened to you, then be humble, attribute it towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but don't try to flaunt it and say, look, this is what I've done. Imagine, I've been on Hajj before, I've been on 5 Hajj, and make sure everyone knows I've been on 5 Hajj, or 10 Hajj, and so forth. No, don't try to tell everyone regarding how many things you've done and so forth. This is not what is befitting of a Muslim. Rather, we should be humble, and this is why Yaqub alayhi salam tells, Yusuf, don't tell your brothers. Allah's given you a dream, and it's a good dream, and obviously the father knows how to interpret dreams, so it's a good dream, and it's something of a blessing, but don't tell your brothers. Why? Because it can cause some issues there. So don't flaunt the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. On top of that, all of the blessings of Allah, whether it's through knowledge rather than, when it comes to the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the whole point is that Allah gives knowledge, deeni knowledge, to those who He loves. If you really want the biggest blessing, Allah says, يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Allah gives you the understanding of deen. This is the biggest one. You can have wealth, you can have status, you can have kingdomship, everything. But that's not on the level at which Allah says that I don't love you the most. Sorry. If I'm going to love you the most, I'm going to give you understanding of deen. يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. So I'm going to give you that faqih and jurist status. And if you have this, then alhamdulillah, this is what is a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only that, you'll find in Surah Yusuf that there's lots of households. There are different types of households. And in that household, you find a father, you find a mother, and you find the children as well. So sometimes you find that the good children, they come out, or they come about, because of the father being very good and righteous. So when the father is righteous, or the parent is righteous, you will automatically see that, a lot of the time, generally speaking, you will find exceptions, but generally speaking, you find the child also being righteous. Why? Because he wants best for his child. So he tries to say, look, this is what I done, so you should do the same thing. This is what I was taught, so you should do the same thing. So these is some of the reasons behind a good household, and behind having that environment at home, that you want righteous children. And having righteous children, you have to look at yourself. Say, am I righteous myself? How can this boy, this girl be righteous when I'm not even righteous myself? So always try to focus on yourself, and hopefully that will influence the child to see all of the good things as well. So Yusuf alayhi salam, the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam as well. So Yusuf alayhi salam was righteous, but the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam eventually became righteous. After doing all of that, eventually Allah forgave. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then forgave them, and obviously then they became righteous after that. Allah subhanahu also mentioned in Surah Yusuf that Shaitan always wants to break up families. This is one of his ultimate jobs. His highest, he gets the biggest thumbs up, or he gets the biggest pat on the back, because he's broken up a family, just like husband and wife. In this surah, we find that Shaitan comes to try and break up the brothers. And he's trying to fight and then create jealousy amongst them, and then they try to break him up. This is what Shaitan wants to do. So in your family that you have, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the family as a blessing, but know that Shaitan is after your family, and he wants to break up that family, and he wants to cause rift between family members. This is what Shaitan wants, and that is one of his ultimate jobs and goals. We also learn in Surah Yusuf that is fair and just from Yaqub alayhi salam to his son. He saw a lot of fairness. He was very fair between all of the sons, even though through his heart he loved Yusuf alayhi salam more, but he didn't show it. So sometimes, out of all the children that we may have, somebody has, or grandchildren, whoever it is, we may love one more than the other, but we don't show it. So example, you're giving all of them money, you say £5 each, £5, £5. You don't say, because I love you more, I give you £10. That's unfair. You rather give £5 everyone, but you still have love for the child that you have more. That's just natural, that you can't take away from a person. So be fair and be just. Yaqub alayhi salam was fair and just as well. So no one can accuse him. No one can accuse him of that, you are unfair and you are unjust and so forth. No, he just loved one more than the other, which was natural. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that jealousy also, so learn from Surah Yusuf that jealousy makes you insane. Jealousy makes you a murderer. Jealousy can make you assassinate somebody. This is what jealousy does. You hate him so much that you want to kill him. And the brothers of Yusuf were jealous of Yusuf alayhi salam, and they wanted to murder their own brother, the little brother. He was 7-8 years old. Let's go and throw him in the well. Let's go and Salim, they wanted to do this. So what does jealousy do? As Muslims, we know that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam described jealousy as something that destroys your good deeds like fire does, and you put it underneath wood and then it burn the fire, burn the wood. So this is what jealousy does. So jealousy is very dangerous. That's why I said that protect your a'mal, protect your good deeds. But if you have jealousy, it's like putting fire towards all of your good deeds and burning them all. So jealousy is that's why we say, sharri hasidin idha hasad. The hasad and jealousy, we ask Allah for His protection from jealousy. Not only that, in Surah Yusuf we find that when talking to a criminal, so talking to a mujrim, that we remind them of the accountability with Allah before yourself. Sometimes you say, oh, look what you done. You done this and you done that. You stole, you lied, Rather, before that, what should you say? Look what you done. You violated Allah's laws first, before you violated mine. Yeah, you disrespected Allah before you disrespected me. So always attribute the disrespect or the sin towards Allah, as in that go and be accountable for Allah first before me. As in I'm second compared to what Allah is. Allah is number one. So you have to please Allah first before you please anyone else. And if you're disobedient, you must ask Allah for forgiveness before, as in anyone else. This to always be accountable towards Allah. So when talking to a criminal, talk about Allah first and how you violated the laws of Allah before you talk about anything else. This is very important as well, and this is what we find in Yaqub alayhi salam's story as well. Allah then mentions also for sabrun jameel. For sabrun jameel. Allah talks about regarding sabr is of different types. So sometimes you have sabr, and then you have somebody's got a very dignified. So what is sabrun jameel? A person's got a very dignified attitude towards a certain adversity. Yeah, he doesn't complain to nobody. Sabrun jameel, he doesn't complain to nobody and ask for pity and sympathy, or look at me and so forth. I'm complaining and then they're asking for pity and sympathy. No, that's not sabrun jameel. Sabrun jameel is keeping quiet. Say, no, I'm only going to speak to Allah. It is between me and Allah. This is the sabr. I'm only going to speak to Allah. That's it. This is sabr jameel, and this is now of different types. Some people will start to complain and so forth, and their sabr is of a less quality, but the highest quality is now is between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On top of that, he mentions here that in your youth, if you look after your chastity, just like Yusuf alayhi salam done, if you look after your religiosity, your deen, your religion, in your youth, Allah will protect you when you're older. Allah will protect you when you're older. So it's very important when you're young and you're fit and you're able and energy, and then you protect it when it's very hard, and you look after your religion and you choose religion first, then Allah will look after the rest of your life. This is what we find Yusuf alayhi salam doing. He had a chance to do zina, but yet he said no. Not only that, Yusuf alayhi salam, when coming to the story with the woman, the Aziz's wife, the dangers when interacting with the opposite gender. So she was obviously now he's into the well. He come out of the well, he got sold into slavery, and now he's with the Aziz's house. So in Sharia, what does it mention? That it tells us about modesty, how to dress, to stay away from the women, to try and stay away from the opposite gender, not to try and talk to them in a flirtatious manner, not to try and be always. Only you will speak to them if you need to speak to them in a very respectful, professional way, and only if you need it when there's a necessity and there's a need. Then you can go and speak to them accordingly, rather than doing it just out for no reason. You just go and speak to them and say, no, that's not what Sharia wants. Why? Because Shaitan will start to come and put a small little drop of something inside, poison inside, to try and make it something there, to try and work out something. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, watch your dress, watch your speech, control your urges and so forth, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take you towards Jannah. It's very important how all of this was happened. Now Yusuf alayhi salam, was alone with Aziz's wife for most of the time, because he was a slave at that time, and day in day out seeing this. So obviously something happened, and he was very beautiful as well, and she was also very beautiful, and then she tried to seduce, and then he had to stop, and he had to, even though in his heart he actually, he's a human being, so he also had that desire as well, but he said no, Allah comes first. And then he turned towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to asking, Ya Allah, I need help here, because I also have this desire, I need help. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a way out for him. And remember this, that Father Rabbi Sijnu ahabbu ilayya mimma yad'unani ilay. It's a beautiful ayat. He says, the prison is better for me if I stay here. If I stay here, seduction, zina, fornication. So I'd rather go to prison. This is that I love prison, or the isolation of prison, rather than doing something which is zina and something which is, even though he was innocent. So this is what Yusuf alayhi salam taught us as well. You find also the evils of gossip, and how all of the gossip corners, وَقَالَ نِسْوَةٌ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ, that all of the women came down and all gossiping about, oh, you done this, oh, the Aziz's wife done that, oh, she seduced this little boy, and so, not boy, but she seduced this Yusuf alayhi salam. And then gossip made the situation even worse. Why? Because now he got called out in front of all of the women, and all of the women were trying to, they were cutting something, and they even cut their own fingers. They even cut their own fingers when they saw the beauty of Yusuf alayhi salam. And she had an ego, and she wanted to show everyone and seduce in front of everyone regarding how beautiful he is and so forth. So this is what it does. Gossip leads to many different things, and your ego is now, because of now what they are saying and this person is saying and so forth, what others people. So always, when it comes to the evil, when your ego comes, when the ego now starts to arise, you care so much about what other people say. So what happens? You change your attitude. Oh, what is this person going to say? Let me do it this way. Oh, what is that person going to say? Let me do it that way. So be very careful regarding, always you have to check yourself and see how you are. And then you realize, so Aziz's wife did public seduction of Yusuf, or tried to do this. And then he had to stop it and so forth, and he said, rather put me in prison. So whatever you don't have as well, also thank Allah as well. So sometimes, if you say, Allah give me beauty, and what happens? It comes with 100 problems. It comes with 100. So be thankful that Allah doesn't give you some bounty as well. Sometimes money, yeah? So Allah gives you loads of money, it came with 100 problems. So rather I don't have money, or less money, then I'm left with less problems. So sometimes not having a bounty is also something you should be blessed and thankful for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. And we also find out that inner beauty is better than outer beauty as well, because Yusuf alayhi salam has such character. Even though outwardly he was beautiful, but his inside was must have been much more beautiful than that. And he rejected the seduction of the woman in front of everyone, and he became even more desirable because of his rejection and not wanting to do something which is that. And then people respect that, and people respected him as well. And remember this, that there's justice. There's been a lot of injustice in this dunya, and a lot of justice in the akhirah. So injustice will happen in this dunya. Why? Because Yusuf alayhi salam went to prison and he was innocent. So where's the justice? It's injustice, right? He's innocent. But in the akhirah, there's no injustice at all. This is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that everything happens through justice, and only Allah is in charge of this. While in the prison, what does he do? He makes da'wah. The first thing that he does, he goes and he makes da'wah to the people. So da'wah in prison. Yusuf alayhi salam showed his character, and everyone he's seen his character, how he was and how he was speaking to the people and so forth, and his status as an interpreter of dreams, and people came to him. So he didn't go out and knock on every single cell and say, this is this. No. People came to him because they saw his character, and then he made da'wah. People came to him first. He didn't go out and shouting everywhere that this is this. No. People came to him, spoke to him, and then he gave da'wah in this form. So he's very clever and very wise in the form of his da'wah as well. So obviously good character he had, and obviously that good character was shown and seen by the Aziz, the king, and then that got him out of prison as well in the end, through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's permission. A person must also go through hardships to get to the highest stages. This is one of the biggest lessons you find in Surah Yusuf, that he was put in a well, almost assassinated, put in a well, deep well, dark well, all alone. He was isolated, sold into slavery, got seduced in public, put into a jail. Then he became the king and the minister of finance in Egypt. So sometimes you have to go through a lot of things before what you actually want. And this is what you find in Surah Yusuf as well. Not only that, you find that never lose hope. And Yaqub alayhi salam, the father, never lost hope in finding Yusuf alayhi salam. Because inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun, that I know something that you don't know. I feel something. I have a firasa. I have some intuition that he's still alive. He's still alive. And he cried, and yes, he felt bad and so forth, but he never gave up hope. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala returned Yusuf alayhi salam towards the father as well. Not only that, Yusuf alayhi salam didn't blame his brothers. He never blamed his brothers that, why didn't you do this and why did you do that, why did you leave me and so forth. Rather, he says, there is no blame on you today. لا تثريب عليكم اليوم. There's no blame on you today. Allah will forgive you. Allah will forgive you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave all of the people, all of the brothers. And He forgave when in a position of power. Imagine that. When you forgive and then that person is more powerful, it's easy to do that. But when you're in a position of power and you forgive, this is now ihsan. This is the highest level that a person can try and reach. So always try to forgive, even if you have the power to not forgive and then to do something, but still you do this. This is what good character shows. And this is also at the time that our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when conquering Makkah after being persecuted for so many years, he says, "La tathriba alaykum al-yawm." I'm not going to blame you today. You're forgiven today. And then this is what his reaction was. And not only that, we find that a lot of respect to the parents is mentioned in Surah Yusuf as well. Even so, that in their Sharia they made sajda towards their father as well. And then we find the tarbiyah as well aspect. I'll leave on this last point, the innamal a'malu bil khawatim, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned this hadith that the ending, our actions are according to our endings. Our endings, meaning the ending is the most important part. So Yusuf alayhi salam and his brothers, they done something bad, but in the end they were forgiven. In the end they were forgiven. And the most important part is that you want to die as a Muslim. So you might live a life which is very bad, sinful, and so forth. But at the end, if you're good and now you die as a Muslim, then it's still successful. Because you don't want to be good all your life and at the end you do kufr. Then you've died bad, and that is obviously a person will stay in Jahannam. So Allah mentions in Surah Yusuf, it mentions a dua that ربي قد آتيتني من الملك وعلمتني من تأويل الأحاديث. It mentions it, توفني مسلما, that give me death with Muslim, as a Muslim. توفني مسلما وألحقني بالصالحين, and make me amongst those, meet me with those who are salihin and righteous as well. And the brothers also became the stars of the story, just like the dream and 11 stars, they also became the stars. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the ability to act on what's been said and make it such that now we're learning from the Quran and learning from all of the different lessons of the Quran as well. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance and for protection for all our actions. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallah bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Just one announcement before inshallah, so just for those who are eating iftar here on a daily basis, a lot of food gets wasted, meaning they take a plate and they eat one morsel and they leave the whole plate. So please be very careful in wasting food. If you're not going to have it, then don't ask for too much. And if you are wanting to have it and you can't finish it, then also try to take it home if you have to. Don't put it to waste. Same with water. You take one sip of the water and the rest of the water is left there. So don't waste water. No one likes to waste anything. Allah doesn't like you wasting these things. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us all.